Okay.
All right, we're recording. So, Madison Malfa, you have quite a background in starting with mechanical engineering and biomechanics. So was biomechanics a concentration or?
Yeah. So as I got into school, I mean, because actually I originally, reason I went into engineering is when I was in high school, I was actually doing some graduate research while I was in high school, starting my like sophomore year in high school. Like I went out into the field and had like an internship, and was doing research into uh, fusion reactors. And so like I went into college planning to go into that sort of field and going into energy and um, various stuff. And that's kind of how where I was going coming out of high school. In high school, I wasn't very athletic of a person. I was totally out of shape. I was much more of a a nerd and a geek, and I still very much am. And I only first got into fitness literally right after high school, right before college, but right in right in that little summer gap. And then as I continued with college, it only grew, my passion for it. And I, like everything else, I love information, and, I have a very analytical brain, and I like figuring shit out. And I just got obsessed with it and just learned more and more and more about it. And so while I was at school, I started being, I went into school as a mechanical engineer, and then I started, they offered a specialization in biomechanics, and I took several biomechanics courses in biomedical, but I really focused on the biomechanical because that's what kind of interested me the most. And so I started kind of pushing in that direction. But so I have both of that.
So you
Um,
left so you left fusion behind, even though that was like the initial
yeah,
interest.
and it's interesting. In my engineering job now, I've actually, it's not a fusion, but it's still. I ended up in the energy field. And it's a long road to get there. It's a long story, but
Yeah,
it's pretty funny how life works out sometimes. Yeah.
dude, what's crazy is that like I was listening to Bill Gates or yeah, it was Bill Gates, and he said energy in the next like 20 years is going to be one of the biggest industries. In addition to
Always has been.
in addition to genomics, so like genetics in terms of like personalized medicine, and then you
Hmm.
have energy, like energy crisis. Like we live in the United States and we don't like feel it. We're we have power all day. It's all good. When you go to like developing countries or third world countries, energy like is such a shortage in a lot of places.
Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, I don't want to go off on too far of a tangent,
Yeah.
but there's all sorts of stuff that's going on, in the energy field and where things are going. And, coming from of that research, I'd love to see, actionable fusion come to fruition, which I still believe is a possibility. But it's more complicated than most people let on. And the global warming thing is also a misunderstood topic, but I'm not gonna dive into that either.
Not today. Today,
No.
let's keep the focus on this. Yeah. No, dude, that's really cool because it shows that you have like both kind of backgrounds, like strong science background, and that's the interesting thing about science. Like you start in one area, and then you might end up in another area that interests you the most.
Especially,
How was biomechanics? You said you really liked it, and were you like, how long have you been lifting?
um, I got into fitness, like I said, right at the end of high school. So I was like 18 at the time. So I've been doing this. So I've been lifting for like yeah, I forget exactly all the stuff I did right in the beginning, but like in the beginning, I know what the hell I was doing. And I knew that, which is one of the reasons that I hadn't, like, when I was in the high school, there's a couple times I like very briefly kind of dabbled, with like going to the gym and stuff, but like I didn't know what the hell I was doing. And then like when I was later on, I'm like, okay, I know I don't know what I'm doing. I need to figure something out because, I'm an idiot. I don't want to hurt myself.
Right.
Um, and so I came in and I was very much like a newbie, and I didn't know shit about it still. And my gains along with my knowledge have been exponential, and like even the gains that I'm making now versus just 1 year ago are, it's literally been an exponential function. Um, so it's really interesting. Um,
How do you monitor your progress? What key
Well, it
factor?
depends. Yeah, so I mean, it comes to goals, and so when I work with like a client too, everything you do depends on your goals, because what's correct for one person is not going to be correct for somebody else. Now, and that said, how you measure that is also going to be technically different, right? If you have a 45-year-old guy, you know, he has a family, he's not trying to be a top strength athlete in the world, he just wants to get in shape. That's a, you know, he just wants to get quote unquote stronger. You know, how do you measure what is stronger, right? How do you qualify and quantify that versus, you know, somebody who maybe you have a 25-year-old guy or girl who wants to be a competitive lifter, they want to be stronger. You know, that's different qualification for them. They want their bench, squat, deadlift because they're powerlifting to be stronger. If you're a strong man, you want your you know, your log press and your clean, you know, your axle clean, and your, you know, you want faster times on your carries. It's a different measurement, right? So how do you measure that progress?
Mm-hmm.
You measure it based on your goal, right? So that's one of the reasons that goal setting is so important. And not, you can't, when you set a goal, it can't just be this big ethereal thing. You got to be able to chop it down and get really, really specific. Even like, I want a stronger squat. Well, first of all, everything starts with why, right? If you can't answer why, you shouldn't be doing whatever you're doing. Whatever it is, whether it's a protocol, whether it's a movement, you should know. If someone walks up to you and says, why are you doing that? You should have a reason. Even if it's not a great reason, you should have a freaking reason. Now, so let's say you're doing squat, right? Well, why are you doing, you know, what is your goal with squat? Oh, well, I want to be stronger. Well, how stronger? You want to be stronger for a max? You want to be stronger for reps? Where are you weak? You know, are you weak on this portion of the range of motion? Are you weak on this portion of motion? Do you lack strength? Do you lack speed? Do you lack power? Where in the spectrum do you fall? So the deeper you dive, the more minutia and the more fine detail come into play, right? So when you have someone who's an average, more of an average person, or someone who's out of shape getting into shape, that's a pretty simple process, because literally you can make 1 to 2 changes. You know, you have somebody who's never worked out before, and they, you know, they work a desk job and they sit on the couch and they watch the game, and they drink beer every night. They drink sodas throughout the day. All you do is you stop drinking soda, take a 10-minute walk or 30-minute walk every day. Guarantee you will lose a lot of fat and a lot of weight.
Mm-hmm.
But now you're somebody who's, you know, you work out, you're already someone who's in shape and you want to be in better shape. That's going to require little something more than they would for that person. Now, if you're somebody who's really, really, really in good shape and you want to get in extremely good shape, that's when you start having to do more extreme things and have to be that much more intelligent about it.
That was a really good description. No, that was good, because it's like when you have clients coming up to you, it's like a lot of the time the client doesn't know exactly the goal, and I think as coaches, it's our job to really like define that, like what is it that we're actually looking for, because if you're aiming for everything, you're aiming for nothing. And I think that's like a big concept. And what's cool is that as engineers, we are like we're really good at it, because I mean the whole day, even in my job, I deal with a lot of non-technical people.
Mm-hmm.
What's crazy is a lot of the time the goals are like just very theoretical, and when it's all theory, you're not going to get anywhere. So like you got to like combine the two and find a better intermediate. And especially with clients, like when you're dealing with, I mean, I see that a lot in like people that are just looking to get in shape. And so like they want this, like 10 different things. And I think as coaches, before we bring them on board, it's really important to really like define those goals, because if you don't, the client will just be disappointed in your program, because then they're like, what the hell am I doing? I wanted this, or like, I see a lot, and it's like
getting what they really wanted, right? Because they didn't know. So how are we supposed to serve them, right?
100%. And it's like in the beginning, like people are so like, for example, like an average person, an average 30-year-old male who's been doing cardio for the last 10 years, and he just like hasn't been losing weight, and he's, you know, overweight, and now he asks a weight training coach for help, right? And weight training coach just gives them a protocol, lifting protocol, and is like, hey, do this, you know, for 10 weeks and come back to me, or, you know, do this for 5 days a week and see how it goes. And that person is like, okay, wait a minute, like, am I not gonna do cardio anymore? And then it's like the weight training coach is like, it's just, I just wish there was better communication before we actually like signed with the clients.
Absolutely. Oh, absolutely. I mean, with a lot of coaches and trainers and a lot of people who aren't really great coaches, right? They're also very biased towards whatever they do or their system, and they love to shove somebody into that box regardless of what it is. And so something I pride myself is, and I've learned from all sorts of different disciplines. I've learned from, you know, you name it. I integrate things from yoga, from bioenergetics, strongman, powerlifting, bodybuilding, you know, other, you know, biomechanic theory, all these different things. And I treat it like a toolbox, right? And you wouldn't go build a house and, you know, you don't want to use a hammer for everything. Sometimes you got screws, right? And if you have a whole bunch of hammers, maybe this might work. Maybe a hammer will work to hammer in the nails, but maybe a nail gun's gonna be better, right? Maybe there's a better tool for the job. That said, if you only have 3 nails, do you really want to use a nail gun, right? So it depends on the situation on what you use. So, and like we were saying before, you need to be specific on what your goal is. So, you know, I work with a lot of people that want to be bigger and stronger. And so one of the questions I ask them when I onboard them is I ask them, you know, because usually like, I want to get bigger and stronger. So I said, if you had to choose one, which would you choose? Because the thing is, both will support each other, and training for one will support the other. But the approach is different. And I want to get out of the gate, what's more important to them. Because if I train somebody who's, okay, I want to be stronger, well, guess what? I'm going to make them bigger, because if I know that they're bigger, they're going to be stronger. And likewise, if someone wants to be bigger, they probably need to be stronger so I can make them bigger. So I end up doing both, but the approach is different because of their goal. And I treat it very differently, even though it's the same, but it's not. It's not at all.
Yeah, that is such a good point, because it's like guys want to get bigger, and I see a lot of girls want to get stronger. I don't know if that's like a trend you've seen, and it's just like they both go hand.
Girls are still afraid of being big. You know what I mean? Less and less girls are afraid of like being big, because unless if you're a girl, unless you're a freak genetically, which then you're 1% or 5% of 1%. But unless you're that, or you're taking male androgens, you probably aren't going to be big, because you don't have the same androgen capacity that a male has, right? So you're never going to be, women shouldn't be afraid of getting too big. I mean, there's things on that, but
yeah, and what's interesting is that like I think the fear of weight training in the female population is starting to go away, but it is so entrenched in the mind that like the whole concept of getting too bulky when you start lifting weights, and it's so crazy, because it's like even after you've been lifting for like 3-4 years as guys, like you don't look like, you know, Mr. Olympia, like you know, like, and that's like a hard for general.
If a girl walks into the gym and they do like 3 dumbbell curls, they're gonna look exactly like Phil Heath. Don't you know this? Everybody knows this.
And I think even that just comes down to like not knowing enough on both guys and girls side. So like when people start weight training, I think they have like crazy high expectations of how it's gonna like they're gonna go from being overweight to like shredded 6-pack abs in like few months. And that's where I disagree with a lot of like these personal trainers at local gyms, because a lot of those guys make it sound like, are you there, Madison?
Yeah, I'm here. I'm sorry. Did you lose me?
It's just your video got static.
Oh, I'm sorry. Let me.
Yeah, just turn it off and turn it back on with the video.
Yeah. Oh, wait. There we go. Hold on. Okay. Better? Sorry about that.
No, you're good. And like, so that's where I disagree with a lot of the personal trainers at local gyms, because a lot of the time they make it sound like if you exercise 1 hour a day, you're like, it's gonna change your life and you're gonna look like you've never looked like before. And what's crazy is that the emphasis on diet is never like emphasized. And I think like as online coaches or as, you know, somebody who knows better, it's important to like put that in the brain of your clients about like priorities, that hey, weight training is very important and so is diet. And even with like, I want to get your take on flexible dieting after this, but um, I think like
I made a video on that earlier today.
yeah, I didn't have the time to watch it, but it sounded like something right in my alley. um, but yeah, like when you have like a intermediate or like a beginner person wanting to like get in shape, what kind of program do you build for them?
A beginner?
Yeah.
Um, hold that question. Let me come right back to that. I want to just talk on the trainers for a second.
Sure.
Because the thing, here's a big thing that plagues the fitness industry. I mean, it plagues other things as well, but it's one of my biggest pet peeves, and I see it all the time. There's something called the Dunning-Kruger effect. I don't know if you're familiar with it. With
Basically, definitely.
Yeah. So basically, you don't know enough to know that you don't know, right? You don't know what you don't know. When you get a little smarter, you realize what you don't know, but there's still more that you don't know that you don't know, and what you know. Right? There's like three circles, and so everybody that for whatever reason, I don't know why it is, but with fitness, someone goes to the gym for like 2 weeks or like 2 months, all of a sudden they feel like they're an expert and they know everything. Like I'll see someone in the gym, and like I don't really do this anymore because I'm in much better gyms, so people aren't this bad. But like I'm seeing someone do something, like I know they're gonna hurt themselves. Like it's just stupid, and like I'm just offer very nicely like a little bit of help, but they get very defensive and standoffish. I'm like, what do you know? Like I've been doing this for like 4 weeks, man. It's like, okay, I've been doing this I've been coaching 6 years, training for 8. I've learned from the best in the world. What do I know? Keep doing what you're doing. But my point is that the same thing goes to trainers. So a lot of these people become trainers and they don't know anything, right? They just did someone else's program. Now they give that program to somebody else, and it just gets passed along the line. They don't ever learn the principles, right? And that's, it all boils down to certain basic fundamentals. And as long as that's in place, everything else just builds on top of it. Everything else that is just variation that's applied. It's just about correct application based on the person. So going back to, what would I do for a beginner? Well, the answer is it depends. So, and that's if you ask me any question, my real answer is it depends, because it does. So, if the person's coming to me, he's a beginner, well, what do you mean by beginner? Is he weak? Is he fat? Is he metabolically good? What are the delineations of where he at? So if I'm taking somebody who's never, create a hypothetical person for me, and I can give you a better idea.
So yeah, a person, he is 26-year-old and 170 pounds, 6 foot tall, and he just has a nice beer belly, and he's just depressed because he's never done weight training. He was a swimmer in high school or whatever, and he just wants to lose fat. That's his number one priority, but a gaining muscle would be cool to have.
Okay. He's 176. Six how much?
Yeah, 170, 176. He's a 6 foot tall guy
with a beer belly with that weight. It's not that fat. I guess he's just a lot of. Okay. Anyways,
let's take it up a notch. Let's take it at like 200 pounds.
Okay. So he's okay. So with someone like that, I mean, so I said it depends, but it also is also the answer. Actually, I realize my answer is also going to be the same. Where I start is going to be his movement quality, how he does the movements, how neuromuscularly and biomechanically he, specific for his body and his levers, but more so on how his nervous system is going to wire it, and balance and stabilize, performing motions correctly. So once I get him doing things correctly, right? Because if you're doing stuff poorly, and even not poorly but suboptimally, right? there's in the long run, you're gonna build up damage if you're doing things correct, like absolutely biomechanically correctly. You're the bang or the trauma on your body, even though it might be very slight, builds up over time. And that's why people start coming up with these nagging injuries and they're like, oh, why is my shoulder bother me? Why does my back bother me? Which isn't always just from the lifting; it's from life in general. But but if you set up the ground right and you get those movement patterns, it's much easier to learn something correct off the bat than to relearn something down the line. So, anyways, I'd start with movement patterns. After that, it'd be a matter of building up his work capacity. So I really wouldn't have him focusing on cardio. Cardio is a low ROI, low return on investment activity. There is a place and a place and a time for it, and there's a use and an application. But you're going to get more out of building muscle than you are going to, for fat loss purposes, especially for someone like this, than cardio. Because let's say you go on the treadmill, right? If you go to any gym, and this is the perfect example of this, right? What type of people are on the treadmills? All the fat, out of shape people, right? And you come back a year later, and who's on the treadmills? The same fat and overweight people, and they look the same. And you look over to the weight section, and who's over there? More in shape people. Not always great, but it varies gym to gym. And those people, at different rates. It depends on the person. I mean, it gets complicated. The point is, cardio isn't effective because if you go and let's say you do 30 minutes on the treadmill at intensity X, right? And you burn 300 calories. You come back tomorrow, you do 30 minutes on the treadmill at intensity X, you're only going to burn 280 calories. You do that 3 more times, you come back on the treadmill, intensity X, 30 minutes, 200 calories, 150 calories, 150, you're not barely burning anything for the same thing because you're actually making yourself metabolically more efficient. So it takes less energy for you to do cardio, less energy for you to sit on your butt at your desk all day. So your metabolic rate's actually like lower because your body's just better in making energy. Which if you're a cardio athlete, okay, good. But if you're trying to lose fat, that's dumb, really dumb. Whereas if you went and did some really hard squats, I won't get into too much of like protocols that I'd use, but like the next day, when your body's trying to build that muscle and recover from that workout, forgetting about even the calories that you burn during a workout, but just that recovery process is going to consume way, way more energy and calories than the cardio would have, right? And that effect, not only did you just burn more energy, you also increased your muscle mass, right? Mm-hmm. Basic metabolic rate. So now you're sitting on your ass, you're burning more calories, right? And you continue to do that, and it creates a greater debt. And the bigger you get, the greater your capacity to create a debt is, as well as your rate also getting higher and higher, which is why, like for me, I can get away with eating some crappy things here and there, even though I don't like when I do that, but that's for me. But I can get away with it, and some other people see me like, how the hell are you doing that? Well, because it just burns right off of me. And I'm not even someone that's particularly naturally, I don't naturally have a very good metabolism. Like getting lean is something I struggle with a lot. But I've recently gotten the leanest I've ever been. And still hit huge PRs on my lifts. But, for me, it was a lot more difficult than for someone else it might have been. But I can still but because I have a decent amount of muscle built, I can get away with more things than other people can. And when I get bigger, I'll be able to get away with more. Not that you should do that.
100%. I think just calling cardio a low return on investment, and then the basic metabolic rate and how like bigger guys or people that have been like lifting for a while can get away with more than an average person. Just little things like that. And the crazy thing is like, and I see this a lot on Instagram, and I personally do it too. And sometimes I feel guilty, but then I always explain it to my viewers, like, guys, I can eat pancakes, for breakfast because I need that many calories to keep up with my workouts. And I'm trying to bulk up and, all these other things. And then when an average person sees that, and that's where I think like we've kind of stretched flexible dieting. We have made it look like you can eat pizza and pancakes and all of that. and still like, you know, be looking like, you know, men's physique, Mr. Olympia, like lean and all of that. And the
No
crazy
way.
thing is,
No way.
you know, and the crazy thing is like, is it to an average person, that is so tempting, and it's like, you know, all their life they've been told that you have to eat like 2 servings of cottage cheese and 3 servings of freaking broccoli and 4 servings of, you know, like protein shakes, and that's how you're gonna get there. And now here we are making flexible dieting look cool, but then what we don't, a lot of time, a lot of the fitness people, we don't like advertise is that like every day about 70% of my calories are from the same food, and that is chicken, you know, vegetables, broccoli, eggs, like, you know, natural stuff that I need. And then the 30% ends up being from food that I sometimes enjoy or sometimes that I crave when I'm
Right.
cutting out for a show. And it just helps me avoid the food disorders and all those other things that come with that.
Absolutely.
And I think
Do
like
you,
that's something that we really need to focus on.
do you eat those foods when you're going into a contest? Like how close to the contest do you go and continue to eat that? Um, yeah, I'll just ask you first.
Oh, okay, yeah. How like so for me, usually when we like the last show I competed in, I didn't have that much muscle mass. I was like pretty like you know, about like 2.5 years into lifting, and I was new, and I was sitting around at like 165, 170 pounds for a 5'7", 5'6" guy, and I didn't have as many calories to play around with. So at that point, it became like 95% eating clean,
Right.
like because it didn't have enough room to fit an entire or like 3 slices of pizza and still meet my macronutrient intake. So it was like we just went straight in, and that, and, you know, high carb, low carb days or whatever we ended up doing at the end. For me, it wasn't that big of a struggle because I actually enjoyed eating everything else because I felt strong. I was mentally good eating all those healthier foods. And then when I got, you know, off the prep, and then I got into like started looking into powerlifting and started getting into that, that's when I realized I need to up my calories. And I've been like, you know, I was like adjusting my program based on that. And that's where it gave me enough room to play around with my macros, play around with flexible dieting a little more, eat some pancakes here and there, eat some pizza Friday nights. And what's crazy is that like a lot of us, we eat pretty much the same food most of the time because we are big into meal prepping. We're big into, oh, you know, the discipline of structured dieting. And then when we like go out, like you posted a picture of tacos yesterday, they looked really good.
I really
I, I posted a picture of pizza last night, and to an average Sally or an average Joe, when they look at that, I think like if we have to be a little careful in explaining the whole situation. What do you say?
Absolutely. Well, like so, for instance, for me, like those tacos were first off like there's nothing bad, and it's all whole food, right? It's meat and like a tortilla. It's not even like cheese on from that place. But I did it right after like a big ass leg training session, and that's it was controlled and it was done as a choice, and it was like I don't do that most of the time. So on macros, like in flexible dieting, what I have to say about it is it's the same thing. I mean, it depends. When you're really dialing in, like again, going from 30% to 20% isn't that complicated. And going from 20 to 15, it's a little more complicated, but it's not that complicated. 15 to 10, slightly more, but getting to that really, really lean is becomes exponentially as you get down to that point. It's harder and harder and harder. And this, what you have to do is more extreme. But the point that a lot of people miss with the flexible dieting, and because it's really popular now because it's really sexy. It's like, oh, I can look like that and eat all those things. Oh, I'm gonna do it. But people, what they don't realize is that stuff gets posted, but like that's not what people are really eating. But then more overall, one of my complaints is that so also when people will do it, like they'll tend to eat more processed foods because it has a label, and that's easier to write the numbers down into their thing. So another thing, but something they don't realize about those labels is, regardless of if it's crap in there or not, you only have to meet those. I think there's like a 20% variance on the numbers in there. So just because it says that doesn't not exactly what's in there. It can vary. It can be higher. It can be lower. And then they within there, like they base it, and it's based off of like a sample test that they do in the analysis. And that's to say, oh, was the analysis correct? Which it varies based on testing and testing protocol and that batch and this and that. And then the company is also aware of this, so they play with that fudge route too. So there's a lot of variables, and you don't know exactly what you're getting. Then on a deeper level, every macro is not, or the same macro is not a carb is not a carb. A protein is not a protein. They're not all the same, right? How you react to this carb and this carb might be very different. Your body might get inflamed from this and be totally fine with this. This one might spike your insulin way too much, and this one's kind of low and burning. This fat is highly inflammatory, and this one makes you feel good. This one fucks up your gut bacteria. Whatever the thing is for the case of whatever the ingredient is. There's also how does it affect your digestion, right? Is your energy level better, right? So after you eat pizza, do you feel better the next day, or do you feel sluggish, right? If you feel better, good. You probably needed the salt. Maybe you needed the fat. But if you feel sluggish, it's probably slowing down your digestive system, which means you're not absorbing as much, right? Because you may eat 100 grams of carbs, 200 grams of protein or whatever, but if you only absorbed 100 grams of protein and 80 grams of carbs, it's not the same, right? So what can you actually absorb? That's more important than necessarily what you think you're eating. And then even if you look up, what's the macros of a chicken breast or an apple? Well, each chicken breast, even the same weight, will vary what's in there. Same apple to apple. This might have been a really good year, and this is a really sweet apple, and this one's not. It's the same type of apple, but it's just different, right? So it's not people like, and because as you do them, you're trying to get that last. Oh, I need like 3 more grams left to hit my number, right? Like, what does that level of precision mean when there's all these error bars everywhere? That variance adds up. Not even taking into account how your digestion might change and flux and what foods are appropriate for you. So it's a little more complicated than people like to admit. I think another point, but I forgot it off the top of my head.
No, dude, that was super valuable, because that was well said, because even like in proteins, like different amino acids, different like quality of proteins, it affects differently. And I think
and absorption speed as well, right? If you have something like, everyone loves to tout, oh, whey protein, whey protein. Well, whey protein hits you like a freight train. It's in and out of your system super fast. Well, now you have no aminos in your system for the next 2 hours because you're not eating for another 2 hours, right? Something that was slower digesting, its level of aminos is going to peak slower. Maybe, and there is differences between the aminos in there as well, right? Which is why, vegan proteins aren't nearly on the same level as animal-based proteins. And vegans will love to argue with me, but hey, people, I was vegan for 3 years. I will tell you from firsthand knowledge, once I switched back to eating meat, and I'm almost a carnivore now, I still eat plenty of veggies, but it was much superior. I felt healthier, and there's also a lot to be said about animal fats too. I don't know if we want to get into that.
So you were a vegan, and then here, let me do this. So you were a vegan, and then for 3 years, you said?
About, yeah. I might have, I forget exactly the delineation. I switched to being like, at some point, maybe like the last third, maybe being like avo and pesca vegetarian. But I was for a while straight up vegan. Yeah.
And then like you switched back to eating meat. How was that?
It was the best thing I ever did.
But why do you say that? Because being vegan is so popular right now. Just like
it is. And so if you're doing it for ethical reasons, okay, I mean, that's fine, but there's an argument against it ethically too, because people don't actually understand like how things work. And like totally against, and as much as I can, I try not to support commercial agriculture and commercial meat agriculture, traditional conventional means of raising beef and chickens and stuff. It's also unhealthier too, which we can, again, it goes back to the fats discussion, which we could get into if you want. So I'm all about, more ethical stuff, and I do my best to respect what I'm eating too, which is, you can almost think of it like how Native Americans think of it, but it's too much ethical stuff right now.
No,
But
that's like,
once I switch over,
how was your strength training? How did that change from being vegan to like when you started eating meat? How was
yeah,
your strength? How was your
yeah,
size?
yeah. I went vegan, and then to initially like I lost a shit ton of weight, right? And which was my goal because I was fat and out of shape and eating crap and stuff. And then, so initially I felt a lot cleaner, and then my body probably, and like if you do a stint of it, there is value. Everything provides value, right? It's again application. But then I was like skinny fat for a long time, and I just couldn't build real muscle because you can't, as a vegan, you can't get enough protein without getting like a bunch of carbs. All your protein sources, which aren't great protein sources, all come with carbs. So
it's really hard to get protein sources without getting a lot of carbs. Yeah, that's a struggle.
Yeah. And again, the amino acid quality just isn't as great either. The best thing to do if you're trying to get bigger is eat beef or red meat. Venison is really great. Any like quality like red meat, grass fed beef, grass fed or free range venison. Anything that's the best. There's other meats and proteins and other stuff that are great too, but you can't beat the red meat.
What about like lean sources of protein like chicken and fish and turkey?
Well, again, there's nothing wrong with them, but since you're trying to gain size, that fat's going to benefit you. I mean, you can get pretty lean cuts of beef too, especially if you get like grass fed. And again, the fat in it, if you get quality raised meats, grass fed and stuff, the fat quality is going to be anti-inflammatory and actually very, very beneficial and very healthy. And it's not like we can get, maybe I should just go into the fat conversation, but again, that's the best. There's nothing wrong with chicken and stuff, but if someone's trying to put on size, I'll usually tell them, no, don't eat the chicken breast, eat the chicken thigh. Right? Go for the fat of your piece. Get that fat. People forget that fat is one of the building blocks of tissue, right? All tissues, they made up the phospholipid bilayer. You need fat to grow. You need fat for metabolic processes. You need fat for various reasons. You need fat as the substructures for your hormones. All the steroidals are based off of cholesterol, right? People love to demonize cholesterol. Well, guess what happens when you're low cholesterol or you take statins? Guess what? Your testosterone crashes. And guess what? Your risks for heart stuff go up, not down. It's the worst drug you could ever take. It's a whole myth. It's a terrible thing, and I can get into all of that, but
yeah,
it's straining. I forget where I was.
Oh, like taking fats as like from grass-fed beef or other sources to gain size.
All right, so yeah, they're a basic they're a essential nutrient, right? If you never eat carbs, you don't need. Reword that. You don't need carbs to live. You need fat and you need protein, right? You have a certain amount of protein you need, a certain amount of fat you need. Now, on top of that, what you're going to eat is energy, right? So that's your carbs, and that's either additional fat or carbs. And how you approach that, can vary person to person. But no matter what, like you can't go on a no-fat diet with carbs and protein. You need fat. It's an essential nutrient. There's nothing essential about carbohydrates. Now, as an athlete, you should be using them. There's a lot of benefits to carbs, especially used correctly, but it's not a essential nutrient. It's not needed for life.
Dude, I can have this conversation with you all day. Like as soon as you mention like phospholipid bilayers and all of that, and your body's basic building blocks and cholesterol and all of those steroids, it's so cool. I took a lot of chemistry in college, and when I relate that to like coaching and just like learning about another person's actual body, because at the end of the day, it's like in fitness, there's a lot of money. And when there's money, you have a lot of these like fad diets coming into play, and you have a lot of these like one guy, like even Dr. Phil has a diet like that people follow, and it's like Dr.
Or Oprah and Weight Watchers. If it works so well, why does she keep getting fat again?
Dude,
I'm just saying.
no, I totally agree, because it's like, oh man, it's so crazy, because it's like you have, I mean, Dr. Phil is overweight too, and
Oh yeah.
you just look at it all and you're like, but those guys have the attention of an average person, so the average person listens to them and they follow what they do. And what that ends up doing is obesity rates are fucking through the roofs in America right now. We have diabetes that's like crazy. I mean, heart disease is the #1 cause of death in this country in 2017. And all of these things are very related. Like I was talking to my mom, and my mom has diabetes and hypertension, and like she goes on a walk every day, and she's been walking for the last 10 years, and it hasn't done anything to her weight. Like it's good for her heart, but it's not doing anything to like, you know, get her muscles stronger or any of that. And so recently she got a gym membership and she's been going, and I was telling her the benefits. Like I was like, you know, mom, don't get yourself overwhelmed. Just go to the gym 4 times a week in the beginning. Just find like, you know, 4 days, and then go to the gym and do these exercises, or get a trainer and stuff like that. And the benefits of it, dude, were so crazy. So here's what happens, right? When you start building muscle, and if you have arthritis, like your bones aren't going to lift as much weight, so it's your muscles are going to help with that. So your arthritis is already getting alleviated. Then you have diabetes. Well, at this point, like if you start dropping weight and you're getting healthier, your diabetes will start to get under control. And then hypertension, same shit there, because once you start lifting weights, you're not going to be eating the unhealthy food, or, you know, having high blood pressure, because your body is starting to feel natural and healthy. So it's like, or so you can either like go to the gym 4 times a week, or you can take like freaking, I mean, nothing wrong with these medications, they're great, but or you can take Metapol your entire life, or you can take freaking statins, you can take, you name it. There's so many drugs. And I work in hospitals all day, and the crazy thing is I believe in that, but at the end of the day, I know that a doctor sitting next to me, they know that an average Susan is not, her diabetes are not going to get solved unless she make dietary changes, unless she makes, you know, unless she changes her lifestyle at home. These medications are only so good.
Right. Well, for type 2, right, type 1 diabetes, there's nothing really you can do about it. You need to be on it. Right. But type 2 diabetes is really a disorder of, you know, insulin sensitivities, right? Basically, if your body is 40% fat and, you know, 10% muscle, then when you put something into your blood, assuming that everything eats evenly, right? Your brain eats the most out of most of it. But everything eats your energy evenly. What's going to eat 40% of your energy? Your fat. So it's just going to store more, right? And your insulin it's just going to drive stuff into there. Whereas when you start raising the percentage of your body that's muscle, more likely is it for sugar and stuff to go into your muscles instead. Likewise, if you're someone that eats a shit ton of carbs and your glycogen is always at capacity, your muscles are never going to suck any up, and it's going to start going by preferential more sensitivity into your fat cells. Fixing diabetes is pretty straightforward. I mean, the walk is a good step, but walking, just adding several 10-minute walks like after you eat has a tremendous effect on balancing blood sugars and stuff. So there's a lot of benefit to it, but you also have to progress too. You still should be doing something with intensity. You should be depleting your glycogen, at least once a week, right? And that's like bare minimum. But there's so many different factors that go into it. Just exercising is going to do so much. But then the eating too. So going back to the statins, statins are a scam. Because first off, they see your HDL and your LDL are raised or off or whatever. So like, okay, take this statin to lower your cholesterol. LDL and HDL are not causes of heart disease. They're not causes of heart attacks. They don't. They're not. It's non-causational. There's the relationship there isn't correct. That science is so out of date. It's more about your triglycerides and your overall like your C1 protein levels are much more indicative of of actual heart problems. Right? The cholesterol isn't what everyone says. Oh, it clogs up the arteries, but that's not really what happens. What happens is you get systemic inflammation, and those blood vessels are all swollen up because they're inflamed. The whole body's like, freaking out. You have a smaller thing. You also can have calcifications and stuff, which has to do with over alkalinity of the blood. There's all sorts of different factors that can go into it, but the cholesterol is not to blame, because then most people are actually already their cholesterol is actually too low. But even if it's at a normal level and or a quote unquote high level, and then they drop it with the statins, it literally just takes away your cholesterol. And again, that's the substructure for all your steroidal hormones. That's cortisol, that's testosterone, that's estrogen, that's progesterone. That there's a million different cholesterol-based hormones, and all of a sudden you don't have these. So if you're a man, your test is going to be low. That's a higher risk of heart disease. Right? If your estrogen is low, it's a higher risk of heart disease. You're going to have more difficulty building and holding on to muscle. Your mood's going to be less. Your sex drive is going to be less. And guess who? What company makes the same? What else? The company that makes statins makes Viagra.
Bless up.
Viagra, yes. And then and Cialis and all that stuff too. The same companies, right? So they shut down your hormones, so they're not doing anything. And now here, your junk's not working. Here, take this. Oh, you have a problem with that? So you take this. When those things only cause more problems, most of the time. There are exceptions, and there's appropriate uses of blood, of drugs. But something that I've seen with my own clients is, and it's so sad, really. I should have been a freaking doctor, but I know more. Like, I would be a better doctor than 95% of these of people who are doctors, which is really sad, because I did not go to medical school. But like I literally have had clients, like I've asked for their blood work, seen what the doctor told them about their blood work, and I'm like, well, first of all, how the hell did they give you that determination? They looked at one number when they should have asked for all of these. They only looked at this one value. You're supposed to look at all this to actually have an idea of what's going on. How do you draw a conclusion, and an incorrect conclusion at that? It blows my mind.
Yeah,
it absolutely blows my mind. That said, 5% are really, really, really great, and the trick is fine. It's just really difficult to find.
Yeah. No, I that's like a super good point, because it's like the whole holistic approach to medicine, like not just looking at one, and like you can make studies do. It's kind of like a business plan, right? If you've written enough business plan, you know that you can make a business plan do anything you want it to do. And same with a study. If you've done enough studies, you know that you can literally design a study to, it's like when people say, like, I remember there was this one time I was in a presentation for this scientific topic, and this one scientist, PhD level professor, big deal, he walks in and he says, what we're trying to prove in this study is this. And I started, like, I literally laughed inside, because I was like, he already has confirmation bias on this. So like, what the fuck are we trying to study here, right? Like,
because you can design the study to find, how you control your variables, and what how many, all the various different things that you control within a study, which becomes more obvious if you're familiar with science and if you read it, and then also realize how inaccurate it is. And just because you get a certain number that says that, like, well, this was an average, and how they did their analysis, the statistical analysis, you could take it different ways. And then also the companies, like, if they're funding a study and they get one they don't like, they go throw it out, run it with somebody else until they get what they're looking for, because they already developed this drug. We just got to make it pass. But that's why like I come from a science background. I'm a man of science, but I don't take it as, you know, the law of God. The more you understand science, the more you understand how imprecise and how it's non-definitive. Um, so I use science as an opportunity to learn things, possibly confirm things, or create my own hypotheses. But then because a study might say something, and you go test it out in the gym, and it doesn't work for you. Well, who cares what the study said? It didn't work for you, right? But you will go and it works. Okay, great. It was a good study, you know, or for you, right? But you take the same thing and apply it to someone else, and it didn't work. So it doesn't. It's still relative. I treat everything on a relativity. Because again, what's good for one, it depends, right? It always comes back to it depends. What's good for one person is not necessarily what's good for the other person, and what's good for this person now is not probably what's going to be good for them in 2 months.
Right. No, your body adapts, and I think that's one thing. Like our point earlier about like the same people using the cardio machines, and like when I go to my gym, it's like one of my friends there. We went to the same school. He's always sweating like crazy, and all he does is that elliptical for like 65 minutes every morning. And I tell you what, I've seen him for the last 4 months, and he hasn't looked any different. And it's totally like it's so crazy. Like I feel bad because I've totally like went from like having 6-pack abs, and now I'm like bulking, but I still see my like upper 4 abs, and it's just like my body has changed so much more. And like I used to do cardio before my show, but you have to understand like why you're doing cardio. You have to understand the why behind what you're doing. And once you understand that, I think like you're at another level, and that's just super good, because at this point it's kind of like discipline. How if you have discipline, that gives you freedom in other areas, right? And same here, if you know why you're doing something and you really understand the core of it, then you have the freedom to manipulate things, to change things based on your own body, based on your own likes. And yeah, dude, it's such a good point, because it's so underrated, and so few people actually mention it.
It always comes back to the why, right? Like I said earlier, right? If I come up to you, whatever it is you're doing, and I say why are you doing this? If you can't state a reason, don't fucking do it.
Mm-hmm.
Right? Because you could be doing more harm than good. You know, not necessarily, but who knows? You should have a very clear reason, or it's just a waste of time too. It could just be a waste of time and energy, because it's not taking you where you want to go. You want to go north, but this is taking you west.
What do you say to people who say like trust the process?
Well, there's a point. I mean, I say that to people sometimes. So, because I know what I do works, and I know how it works, and why it works, and why I'm doing everything though. But it depends. I mean, it depends on it depends, because on on that coach and that client, and yeah, it's hard to give an answer on that.
No, I totally agree, because it's like I totally agree, because it's in the beginning. So you have two contradictory ideas here, right? So in the beginning, you have an average person who, so when they hire a coach, the coach is gonna educate them as much as they can.
Yeah.
But it's gonna take some experience for that average person to realize why they did what they did. It's like in the beginning, so like what I struggle with a lot, or what I see people struggling with a lot, is because we're living in an information age right now. There's so much information everywhere that an average person feels overwhelmed, and that paralyzes them to take any action. So they don't even take any action. All right. So that's another side effect of that. And a lot of like, in my opinion, like, I guess like good question for you at this point is like, how much should you trust your coach?
It's a good question. If it's me, 100%. But It depends. I mean, I've had coaches before too, and like what they did worked, but they didn't listen to my feedback. Like I knew, okay, my body needs more volume than this, and I said that, and they didn't really like listen to me. They wanted to put me on their program, and so I wrote it out. I learned things from the experience, but ultimately it wasn't ideal for me. Then I got off of it, did my own thing, and my gain, I had a lot more gains. Because I knew my body. A good coach, the way you know how your coach is really the relationship. The best thing you can do in a client coach relationship is having a ton of communication. I do my best to be super specific and detailed and accurate and precise as possible in every bit of communication I do. I'm trying to get in their head. I'm trying to get them, like, I'll tell them the why of what they're doing, right? I'm going to tell them the how of what they're doing, obviously what they're doing, but also what they should be thinking about and what their goal in that exercise is, right? Because I can have you do the exact same exercise, but we can do it two totally different ways, right? And all I did is a different approach to it. And there's more subtlety and nuance at starting to be at that level, but that's where, it changes. Like if someone's trying to get strong versus how someone's trying to get big, okay, squat. Well, why? Okay, because because you're trying to get strong, so you want to be strong for powerlifting. Or, okay, you're trying to get bigger, so we're going to build your legs. But I want you to think about it like this, because when you're doing bodybuilding, I want you to really focus on your quads and getting tension on there, being able to contract, stretch and move through the range of motion. For the strength, I want quality motion. I want nice and smooth and consistent, never failing. It's different mindset, it's different approach, it's different firing. It changes things. Like even how you feel about something when you go into the gym totally influences your results. Like if you go to the gym and you go, ugh, it's leg day, I fucking hate leg day. Guess what? Your legs are gonna suck. And then you're like, why do my legs suck? I hate leg day. My legs suck, right? And then you're like, oh, I love chest day. Oh, I have such a great chest. Well, it's because you love it. But then if you switched your mindset, oh, I fucking love leg day. Guess what? Also, your legs start growing, right? So your mind, ultimately, not to get too ethereal, but reality is the experience of our consciousness, right? So whatever you think and whatever you bring into your thoughts is what will be. And the more you're able to connect with that, the more powerful it becomes, because you can apply that in every bit of your life, not just training, and getting your physique, but in work, in life, in relationships, in everything. It's super duper powerful when you are able to really take control of that and harness it. But just keeping it to the gym, just your mindset towards it has a drastic outcome on what you're doing, right? Even just how you're feeling about something will change it. It changes hormones, it changes neurology, but it shapes your reality. So that's a big thing too.
That is such a good point, because it's like if you look at, and that's basic science. I mean, when your eye sees something, it goes back to the brain and your occipital lobe, and all that is from your experiences, and then it tries to make sense of what is going on. So if you fill this guy in with positivity, your eye is going to see a lot more positive in the world.
Yeah,
it's just like I remember, like, that's why they say, like, beauty is in the eyes of the beholder. And so every single person is beautiful. It's just that, like, maybe when you were a little kid, you were told that this color of people are ugly and this color of this shape and this body is pretty. Right. So now your eye has this bias, and it's fascinating to study all that, because a normal person just goes around their day and they just do that. And a person who's of a higher intellect, they analyze why they think what they think, exactly, why they think what they think, why they feel what they feel. Like, feelings, I'm at a point of my like personal development, because at a point where I feel something and I know why I'm feeling that I'm feeling, like before a big presentation, before stepping on stage, before jumping out of a plane, before doing a sales call, before doing anything uncomfortable, my brain is looking for an excuse to quit. And I know exactly, like I know it was gonna do that, and I was expecting it to happen. And at that point, I have a mechanism. I listen to dope ass music. I listen to music I love, and it empowers me. And when I do that thing, all of that fear converts to confidence, and then I'm
Yeah,
never the same person again.
absolutely. Absolutely. I mean, I do like the same thing. Before I go on a call or anytime that like you get those bubbles, I do I don't listen to music, but like I just charge myself up. I just like bring up my energy state and get my vibration up, and then like I just come in totally refreshed as a different person. But I just want to say, like, it's more of a consciousness thing than an intellect thing. I know some brilliant people, right? But their consciousness is on a low level. They're not aware. They're aware of themselves, not aware of other things. They're very smart people. They're very technical people, but they don't have this higher conscious. They haven't evolved their consciousness. And because when you realize the power of your consciousness, you have a choice. How you react to something, how you feel about something, is a choice you have. You don't if you find yourself frustrated all the time, that's a choice. You don't have to be. If you stressed out, that's a choice. You're choosing to be that. There's a moment in between when that stimulus comes in and how you react that you can choose to not feel however you want and react however you want. Again, it's all relative. It's like if you forget that anything has meaning for a second, right? What does anything mean? And then you put then reapply the situation and come back from that view. Have that big moment. That big downward view for a second. Be like, oh, why the hell am I pissed off about that? I shouldn't be like that. That's not going to serve my best interest going forward, right? Me being angry and yelling at my spouse, that's not going to serve me and make my life better. Maybe I should react to this differently, right? And as soon as you learn that, it's incredibly powerful.
How much do you invest in yourself?
I'm
Like,
trying
not even
to.
like, I think how much is probably a bad question. Like, do you think people should invest more in themselves? 'Cause
Absolutely.
I see a lot of people just investing in other things but themselves. Like, so you'd see an average American spends, I forgot the exact number, but they spend a lot of money on playing like lottery every day. An
Oh my
average
God.
American spends a lot of money on, drinking at bars like that's a leisure activity, but a lot of Americans spend a big portion of their budget on that. An average American spends a lot of time watching TV. An average American spends a lot of time doing this or doing that is not as useful. And
Right.
then what you have at the end of the day is like people are more likely to go get a master's and have a professor teach them something than self-learning. Like actually going to the library, writing down a topic that they want to learn about, and then picking up books, picking up resources on how to actually master that. That's one skill that the schooling system doesn't teach you, and that's mastery. And what mastery, in my opinion, is that no one can really teach you mastery. It's one of those things where you have to really like freaking spend hours and hours by yourself learning it, and you'll have teachers, you'll have this resources to help you, but at the end of the day it's going to be you. So when you get out of school, so good statistics that I read like a while back is that average American, when they graduate college, they do not read another book for the rest of their life. So now you have educated, uneducated people, right? People that are formally educated, but they haven't updated their education in years. So what ends up happening is we end up thinking that, since United States has 98, 99% literacy rate, we are expecting a lot of scientists and engineers and a lot of this and that. Like we should be like, we should be the best of the best in the world. and we are, but those are for other reasons. And the core, in the core of it, we have a lot of uneducated, educated people, and that gets to me. Like, I graduated college 6 months ago, right? And I have probably read about 30 books, and I'm constantly like going to conferences. I'm meeting people like yourself, and meeting like smart people, and constantly upgrading my knowledge. Like, I still spend a lot of time studying because I still think like a student. Even though I have like, bioinformatics degree, computer science, and like, I have a decent job, and I love what I do. I'm successful in the eyes of, I'm educated and all of that. But if I don't update my education, if I don't learn things by myself, I still go to the library at least once a week to pick up books. Um, and and the crazy thing is, like, I don't know where that comes from. Is that because I'm intellectually curious? Is that because I'm just hungry? Is that because I don't know, and I don't know how to like.
Well, I mean, I would guess, it's because you're seeking. I mean, you are probably intellectually curious. You're seeking self betterment, and you're looking to get better. I mean, like myself, I'm constantly trying to learn more. And as far as being a master, like it takes 10 years to become a master. You have to be and you can't just do it. You have to be obsessed with it. You have to spend every waking moment. It's all you think about. That's how true masters are made. The reason I'm so good at this is because for the last eight years, I've been obsessed with it. I've been absolutely obsessed with it. It's all I've been in class. I'm just thinking about what I'm going to do in the gym later, and then writing things out and a bunch of stuff because I just got obsessed with it. And that's how you attain mastery. But the thing about like going to school is, what is a degree, right? Just giving you a piece of paper. So even if I was going to ask you in your job, right, which is in your field, how much of that information from school are you actually using? Like, I don't know how much from school I'm like actually using. Like, I've learned thought patterns, right? And like it's enhanced how I think. And I learned some things that I still use because I tried to get more specific. But like, even in my engineering job, I don't really do things that I did in school at all, like at all. So what is the worth of the information? So what I think is the best way to learn, the best way to become a master, the only way to make it go faster is to study with masters, is to get as close to the masters as you can, the people who are the best in the world. And that's what I started to do. Is after I got out of school, I think it was summer, my first one of the first certs that I went for after I got out of school, pretty much I think the summer of after I got out of school, I went and learned from Derek Poundstone, who was runner-up in World's Strongest Man. He was second place in the entire world, right? I went to learn from the best, right? And then I did it again when I went to learn from Chris Duffin, and I've learned from Dan Green, and I read all this stuff from people that are in the top of their field. I don't waste time down with these people that don't know as much, that haven't got into these higher levels yet. I try to learn from the best, and it's not to say because I don't do exactly what they do either. It's like the Bruce Lee saying, right? Take what works and get rid of the rest. So I grab gems. I've been collecting gems and putting them into my bag the last 8 years, and I'm slowly building up a big fat bag of gems that I grab from all sorts of places. And you get bigger, nicer gems from people that are at a higher level. So that's the only way to shortcut mastery, right? It's like Einstein, the Einstein quote: "If I have seen farther than others, it's only because I've stood on the shoulders of giants," right? And the reason I can say I'm one of the best in the world is because I've worked with some of the best in the world. I've learned from the best in the world. I'm obsessed with this. This is what I do, and that's why I've been able to have the success that I have.
That's really cool, dude. How was working with Chris Duffin?
He's awesome. He's a madman.
Tell me about him. So like, were you like actually training with him in the same gym, or how was that?
Yeah, it was. Was it a 2 day? I forget. I think it was like 2 or 3 days. Yeah, I can't remember now.
Yeah.
I think it was a 2-day seminar, and now they converted it to 3. But anyways, it was 2 full days, very in depth, and he came with his whole team, the whole Kabuki team, and we went over a lot of the principles, of their system, and then they also a lot of preparatory movements that they use for cueing certain things into place, and we went over the big lifts, and I was familiar with some of the stuff before I even went and did that. But I wanted more. I wanted to get closer, learn more, and I did. I mean, I already had a background too in a lot of corrective. Like I also have a certification in corrective exercise and stuff, and I've worked with I mentored with a pretty good corrective exercise guy as well before, several years ago. So I already had stuff. I already had some tools in my bag, and I went there and I learned more. It was awesome experience. It was really great. And
That is cool because he's a madman. Like it's so awesome to watch his like Instagram videos because he's deadlifting 1,000 pounds for reps or like whatever. Like what is it?
After whiskey shots, whiskey and deadlifts. That's one of their shirts too.
Yeah.
I'm a big fan of theirs. I mean, because he also comes from like an engineering background, and like I'm a big fan. I'm not sponsored by them, wish I was, but I'm a really big fan of a lot of their equipment, like the Duffalo bar. I spend so much time with that bar. It's fantastic. I can't say enough good things about it. I have the shoulder rock, which I actually had a mace before that, which I'm a big fan of. It's really, really great for shoulder health. So I've actually been doing that for years already. But then when he came out with his, it's just nice because it's really easily loadable. My other one was just a fixed weight.
Tell me about the Duffalo bar, because I know they're like Chris is talking about it a lot. He advertises it well, but how good is it?
I fucking love it. In my opinion, you should, if you're not a power lifter, you should do 100% of your barbell lifting, not counting deadlift. All your squatting and all your benching with it. Period. If you're a power lifter, you should also do 75 to 80% of your work with it, and then right before a meet, switch back to a straight bar to get used to it. So, like for instance, in this last training block, so I've been cutting too for the last since May. We're November now. And then I kind of finished like last week though. But how long is that? No, it's not 7.
6 months.
6 months. Yeah. It's about because it was like mid May. Anyways. So yeah, so I've been dieting for 6 months. I came down like 25 pounds. In that time, I hit PRs in all my lifts. So for my bench, I did all my bench training with the Duffalo bar. And so what's really great about the Duffalo bar in regards to bench is it allows for I don't know how well you can see that, but some ulnar deviation in your wrist. And just doing that, if you just hold it and pretend you have a curved bar benching, watch what happens to your shoulder. Just that little twist in your wrist. Do you feel that?
Mm-hmm.
Basically, your shoulder centrates fully, allows your shoulder blades, your scapula to fully retract. So it's a lot safer and just easier on your shoulder. So you have less instance of like shoulder damage, shoulder injury, shoulder inflammation. And then on top of that, you get an extra like 2 inches of range of motion. So you end up getting I get a lot more pec work out of it as well. So like the first 3 weeks that I started using it, it fucking crushed me. I'll be like feeling fine. I'm like 100%. Then all of a sudden, like the fatigue sneaks up on you, and it sneaks up on you in a really weird way too. At least this was my experience. I got a couple other people this happened to too. Where you'd be going and like I'm like 100%, 90%, 80%. Boom, I have 0. What the fuck happened? And I'm just you're just gone. And then like after 3 weeks, I got used to that. It didn't happen anymore. But that little bit of extra range of motion is a really, really, really beneficial, especially for your bench. But then also if you're trying to build pecs, a lot there too. When you're trying to build muscle, those extreme points in the range of motion, there's a lot of growth potential there. Anyway, so back to the bar, and then on squats, it's also you can also with the squats the same thing. If you pretend you have a flat straight bar on your back, then pretend you have a curved bar. you can get your back tighter, and it also puts less stress on your shoulder and elbow, so it beats you up less for bench. And so like I hit like a sorry doing math, like a 20, I think it was a 25-pound bench PR, like a 20 or 25-pound beltless squat PR, another 15 on top of that with a belt. My deadlift went up 25 pounds beltless, all while losing 25-pound body weight. So I basically dropped 2 weight classes, and like put on like 75 pounds on my total.
Mm-hmm. That's super cool, because I was like, I remember I was watching Chris Duffin, and he was talking about like how they were going to do some studies on Duffalo bar, and I've probably already done them, but it looked cool. I've never used it, but it was, yeah. How much is it? It's like
it's kind of expensive. If you get it packaged with sometimes like they'll have discounts and sales on it, and I think you get a sale if you buy it with the shoulder rock too. I forget exactly what kind of sales they're running right now.
yeah.
But next time you're in New York, come by and we'll like I keep it in. It's funny. I did this when I was living somewhere else too. I just keep that in like my deadlift bar in my car. Like I drive around with it. I go to the gym and I carry my bar in. I'm like that.
It's funny, like that reminds me of Chris Duffin. One of his YouTube videos, he walks into the airport with a fucking Duffalo bar because he was going to do some seminar at some other state, and it was.
I remember that video.
It was a super. He was just walking around with a fucking metal bar, and it's called Duffalo bar. Yeah, dude. No, next time I'm in New York, for sure, we'll hit up a workout. This last time was just bad scheduling on my end.
No, it was hectic over here too, so it's all good.
Just New York City was a beast, though. Like I was just telling somebody else, I've been to a lot of cities in this country. I go around a lot for my work, and a lot of big cities like Pittsburgh, Philly, Madison. I mean, you name it. Those cities I've been to. And when I went to New York City, I was expecting that it would be like similar, and I would be able to do the things I wanted to do, like I would do in other cities. And New York City is its own little place, like parking wise, traffic wise, the amount of crowdedness, like how many.
It's insane.
It's
I used to live pretty like close to the city, and like when I went to school, like I described where I was, and everyone's like, "Oh, you must have went to the city a lot." I'm like, "No, I didn't." Like I'm not a big city person. I'm not a big fan of going to New York. Like every so often, it's fun, but I don't particularly like being there. It's expensive as all hell to like get in. If you go by car, it's a nightmare. If you go by bus, it's still annoying. If you go by train, it's still annoying. Everything's expensive. It's crazy. I mean, I have clients and friends that live down there, but I mean, some people love the city. Like
that was the only thing I loved. I loved the city, but I realized that next time I'm going there, I'm not driving. Like,
oh yeah, driving is. You're
like
better off like if like driving to like one of the surrounding areas and taking a commute in like a bus or a train or something. Whether
yeah, I mean,
or kind of down where I used to live, kind of like Rockland County area.
yeah, like New Jersey is super close, or like you can probably stay there. I mean, you could probably only have to pay like you can probably take an Uber there, yeah. But I made that mistake. I took my car in there, and I was like being very risky because I couldn't afford a night at a hotel. So I was like, I'm just gonna sleep in my car. It's just a one night thing. But in New York City, there is no Walmart. There is no like big parking lot where you can park your car and sleep. So all these challenges, and then the universe just ended up working out, and then I ended up getting a hotel, and life was just great. But the city definitely taught me a lot about myself. And like when I got into the city, this was after like a long 16, 17-hour drive, and remaining calm while driving through that city was a skill that I was like, I can remain calm in stressful situations. I got this. Like it was like a good test.
So I live in upstate New York, right? And you can just as you drive south, you can tell you're getting closer because like people drive much calmer up here, and if you go like a little bit more north than here, it's even calmer. but like incrementally, literally like a continuum. The closer you get like down, the crazier and crazier the people get, the worse the drivers get, the more aggressive everyone gets. Like Jersey's horrible too, but just like as you drive south, you just start getting like, oh, we're getting close.
And the crazy thing is, like, I've driven through to San Francisco, I've driven through Los Angeles, I've driven through Chicago, but New York City was like the height of aggression in terms of driving. Like, you have people like, I was so surprised I didn't hit anybody, or like,
Oh, they just shoot out in front of you. And
oh, dude, and it was just like,
people just cut you off.
You had people driving their bikes in between traffic. You had taxis that were like just boom, boom, boom. Like, taxi drivers are aggressive.
Yeah, they don't give an F.
And then, in all honesty, I literally thought NYPD are true gangsters. Like, those guys are not like nice, average, everyday cops. Those guys are. I remember when I got to the Madison Square Garden, that's where the conference was. I didn't know the parking space. I was like, where's everybody parking, right? So there are all these taxi drivers, you know, all of this. I find my way right next to a police officer, and I was like, I'll just ask the officer, you know. He's a public servant, and I'll just ask him. He probably knows the most. So I pull up, and I was like, officer, where can I park? He's like, but you can't park here. I was like, officer, I'm just asking, where can I park? He kept saying, you can't park here. And he was getting aggressive, so I was like, all right, fuck off. I just kept driving. But it was so crazy that, like, that's when I realized, I was like, this is a different city. It lives on its own terms. But I think flying in there is super cool. And then just taking an Uber or bus or whatever options. And then you enjoy the city.
Yeah. Yeah, and you really have to walk or, you know, and take the like subway if you're in the city.
They have a lot of great food.
Nightmare. There is, but it's expensive. If you get really lucky, you can find like a nice like hole in the wall with like really good food that's not super expensive, but a lot of stuff's just super expensive.
Yeah. All right, dude. This podcast was super good. I mean, we already at like hour and a half. Yeah. And
got any more questions?
I'm good, because it's like we might do another one sometime, but
we'll follow up.
Yeah, because like we touched on so many topics, and the crazy thing about these podcasts is that I have to like watch them again to fully make sense of like what we were talking about, because it's like we have so much information going back and forth. Especially on this one, I let you speak a lot, because what happens is if I interrupt a lot, Zoom gets confused, and then the whole speaking, the whole like microphone shit, it just messes it up. So usually like it's better to keep it one way. And you shared a lot of good content. There's a lot of value for people. And awesome. I hope like, I'll share the hell out of it. And yeah, it's on Google Play, iTunes, and podcast app. It'll probably be up tomorrow.
Yeah, next time we'll dive a little deeper.
For sure. We'll pick out like one topic and we'll just dive into it.
That sounds good. That sounds fun.
All right, Madison. Have a great night.
Anybody who's watching that's interested, you guys can check me out on Instagram at Mastodon, MASTODON _strong, or check out my Facebook page, Mastodon Strength and Performance. And I'm trying to get my YouTube up and running too. Well, it's there, just Mastodon Strength and Performance, but I need to start updating that more.
Perfect. And I'll link all of those on my sites too.
Awesome.
It'll be good. All right, 1 second. Let me